Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. A semi-full house this evening. Oh, it's just gone live. Maybe we are live now, and I started early anyway. Hello, everybody. Joined by Patrick, Louis, Loretta, and some bold bloke with a beard on the other side of the world there. Or actually, my side of the world. G'day, Bruce. How you doing? So, where should we start? We shall start with Jonathan Rupert, who's not here because he tells me there's jackhammering going on. So that means we can insult him, say whatever we like now, and he won't mind that at all. He had a great little article about the FAA Reauthorization, which is coming up, and it's full of nice little snippets that the industry seems to be avoiding. So I don't know who wants to jump in first. I see pay to play for UTM, and I see fiddling with aero modelers again. And Patrick, this is your favourite subject, so let's start with you.
Well, I mean, I see this as the gauntlet being thrown down myself. The repeal of 336. I don't really believe like the AMA hobbyist is really the problem. I think the problem here is the Best Buy flyer. I don't know if you guys have Best Buy in the rest of the world where these people are at, but it's a big box store.
We have the same. We have Snack here in Portugal. It's about the same.
All right. So basically, I grabbed a picture off of Facebook the other day, and there's this guy, and he's got, the Phantom in his van out in front of Best Buy. And basically what's going on there is, that's his third Phantom of the month. So the people that go buy these Phantoms at the big box stores are not really modelers or aviation people or anything else. They're just going to buy a drone, and they go out and they start flying. And, there might be some material in the box and a perfunctory test on the controller or whatever, but they don't really care. They don't really think about anyone else using the NAS. And I don't think that that's the case with the AMA. And is it the AMA's fault that nobody's paying attention or being safe? No. I think I'm going to lay that on the FAA and their lack of enforcement.
Lack of enforcement or lack of education? Sorry, Loretta, after you.
No, I was going to say, if you saw John Golia's article, I think a good defense of 336 is that none of the modelers or none of the hobbyists that are flying recklessly are flying under 336 because you're not following any community-based organizations' guidelines. So the whole idea of getting 336 to get rid of reckless flyers doesn't even make any sense, because if they followed 336, they wouldn't be reckless. So I don't know how to get Congress out of where they are right now, trying to stop the hobby, or commercial operators that want to stop the hobby. But getting rid of 336 is not going to get rid of the Best Buy buyers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. This is not a solution. I think it's a short term. We throw the hobbyist under the bus, and we move forward and we start making drone deliveries. Again, the FAA is going to enforce their rules, or this whole 101, 107 thing is not going to work.
But
they're not staffed to do that. They're not staffed.
Yeah, okay, Loretta, I'll give you that. They don't have the staff for that. But, as I had pointed out earlier, I brought some information from New York. I don't know if everybody can see this at home.
He doesn't mean a big boat either. You don't mean a big boat with lots of animals on it either, do you?
No, I mean the small UAS ARC that was put together in 2008 and ran into 2009. I said that this was one of the things that I said. I said, look, you can have all the rules you want. You can do whatever you want. But really, the third leg of the chair is enforcement. And I would suggest that you don't make any rules that you can't enforce. And everybody kind of looked around, and whatever, next, and moved on. So you can't use an excuse that we don't have the staff and we can't enforce our rules. Because then why would you have laws and rules?
Can it be that the approach is to block the community of hobbyists that assemble their own models, that don't have any kind of tracking of their models, and promote the sale of ready-to-fly vehicles that can comply with all the rules that whoever comes enforces. So, as a matter of principle, if one assembles its own vehicle, it will be to his taste and will not put ADS-Bs, LANC, whatever. That would block those peoples, but would only have, yeah, Gary, those would be forbidden.
World's smallest UTM capable aircraft.
No,
anyway,
you would have only reputed manufacturers with 3 letters or more letters on their name being able to sell to whoever wants to buy them.
Well, I think, and yeah, no, you're exactly right. That's the one thing they're doing. Bruce is having troubles down there. I don't know if Bruce is moving or not, or he's very still, or whether he's is he there?
No,
maybe he's not there. Did he move? Well, they're having a lot of trouble in New Zealand, and it's to the same point that the rules are in place, much like 336, and there's no enforcement going on, and that's the bottom line around the world. And I think it's been nicely shown with the Facebook, old Mark Zuckerberg turning up in Congress. They didn't have a clue what Facebook was or how the internet worked. Why on earth would they have a clue how aviation works? You know, it's the same deal, isn't it? It's telling the wrong people.
I don't even know if the people in the UASIO know how aviation works. I'm really, I mean, this deal where we had the registration task force at 250 grams. I mean, does the FAA really want to have, okay, let's go back to we don't have the people to enforce this stuff. And now you're going down to 250 grams and you're capturing toys too. I mean, does that make any sense? It makes no sense to me.
Well, look, the man himself, we can stop talking about him now because the man himself's arrived. Good day to you there. Are you there, lawyer with a jackhammer? Over.
What's up?
There we are. It doesn't sound like much of a jackhammer. In the comments, we've just been asked by Richard if Congress does repeal 336, would all RC model hobbyists have to obtain Part 107 certification? We started talking about your great article about the FAA Reauthorization Act, and we've jumped straight into the model flyers really. But maybe Jonathan, you could just pull out a couple of points that you found interesting with that.
From the can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know, cut out. So from the FAA reauthorization, I guess the real big interesting point that I found was at least that it was going to allow for package delivery companies to actually be able to do operations under Part 107, which is currently prohibited under the Part 107 waivers. I mean, you could do package delivery. Let me clarify. Visual line of sight under 55 pounds, that's fine, but you could not use you cannot do that under a beyond visual line of sight waiver or under a moving vehicle waiver that was prohibited. So I see that as an interesting game changer there.
Well, you also
I mean, there was a lot that was said in here that ticked off a lot of people too. So.
Well, yeah. Well, the deliveries things, and I was by Joanne. What are you doing? Sorry, Loretta, you were going to say. Sorry, after you.
You couldn't do interstate either. You could only do intrastate because you couldn't do air carrier. That's what allow air carrier operations.
But I think that one of the other interesting things that you picked up on, Jonathan, was that provision's been made. We've been saying how the FAA is understaffed, but provision has been made to find a way to get a little bit of cash in to perhaps pay the FAA to police things. What else did you see in there? Over.
Well, I mean, with the whole UTM kind of, there was a whole discussion regarding it told the Comptroller General of the United States to do a study on appropriate fee mechanisms to recover the costs of the regulation and safety oversight of unmanned aircraft and unmanned aircraft systems and the provision of air safety services to unmanned aircraft and unmanned aircraft systems. And so, does this potentially mean in this study regarding the feasibility of having unmanned aircraft flyers pay for some type of UTM? Now, I think that both sides, there's going to be a lot of people very, there's feathers are going to be ruffled regarding this, but at the same time, I would also, I guess, let's maybe think on the other side. What are the current services we are receiving from the FAA regarding the safety oversight, regarding the illegal drone operators out there? It's nothing. So if we have to pay for that, that might actually be a good thing to shut down a lot of these illegal operations that are going on, as well as potentially speeding up maybe some the implementation of Lance across the United States or waivers. And so just kind of think of it on the other side. If we are getting kind of crummy service, if we pay for something and maybe receive more, is that a better benefit overall? Just something to throw out there to think about. Not really taking one side or the other. But,
I think Patrick would like to pick that ball up. That looks like just his sort of a thing.
Well, I don't really like paying for pseudo services or bad service. And I don't know that, let's say, they're going to have to be disruptive in their enforcement model. But even, like this weekend, they had that, the FAA had like the safety thing going on in Florida. And some of the stuff that the presenters were talking about there with GA, the GA safety record could most be affected by personal responsibility, which I don't really see in the Best Buy flyer. There's other statements in here about compliance with the FARs. I think what we have is we have a different dynamic here with the droners where GA and aviation, if you didn't comply with the FARs and the culture of safety, well, you would probably wind up dead. And we don't have that here. I think this is going to be, the rules are going to be really hard to enforce. And even with ID and tracking, I don't know what that's going to look like. I've asked that question. I don't know if anyone read my article, but what are these supposed 25 million drones going to look like on an ATC screen or a cell phone app or whatever else? The other thing I would say is, has anybody seen some of the slides that Amazon has put out about, flying beyond visual line of sight, and UTM and tracking and all the rest of that?
Well, yes, but
some pretty lofty goals.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they can get beyond what they delivered so far, wasn't it 700 feet or something like that? That's what they've managed so far.
The burrito or the candy bar?
No, oh yes, that's right. That's right. It was, but it was that was great, wasn't it? It was the house at the end of the field. I've crashed aircraft further away than that, but anyway, that's another thing. I don't know. I don't think Mr. Simpson's with. Oh, he is with us. He's moving. Because I think speaking to the standards for remote identification, I think didn't the French come up with something? Did either Louis or Bruce, I think, had some information on what those standards look like.
Yeah, they've got this electronic conspicuity requirement coming in. I think it's in July the 1st of next year, or this year. And you have to have a little beacon on board which broadcasts on 2.4 gigahertz using a internet protocol, so it's packeted information. All drones that weigh more than 800 grams will require this. It has to broadcast this information every 3 seconds at least, and it wants to know the drone manufacturer, the serial number of the craft, the current latitude and longitude, the altitude, the latitude and longitude of the launch point, the speed, the heading, and all this has to be timestamped. So that sounds great, except that I've got quite a few drones which are more than 800 grams and they don't even have a GPS on them. So how would you be compliant? And it's like, well, excuse me, this sounds great. Well, the other thing they have to have is a flashing light, which can't be the same color as any aviation. So it can't be green, blue, green, red, or white. So it has to flash the letter U in Morse code, because everyone will go, what's that? It must be a UAV. So it sounds like, again, this is another Citroen from France. They just want to be, as Louis says, they want to be different for the sake of being different, and to hell with the results. So I don't see how, because this, obviously your Phantom and probably your Mavic, I think, would fall under this. How are DJI going to go and add all this stuff because France says we want it? Or are we just going to have France being a country devoid of drones, which would probably be a great thing to say?
But DJI already broadcasts that. They have their telemetry.
Do they broadcast it? Do they broadcast it in the right format though, and at the right frequency, and at the right intervals?
It's just a matter of doing a patch to their firmware. So come on, they're doing patches every other day. So it's just another every other day patch for them.
So what do you
they'd have to add a blue light that flashed you?
Oh, will it be blue? I prefer pink. Would be more conspicuous to the modeling tradition and the fashion tradition of France.
The fashion.
Let's not cast any aspersions here. You know, that's.
Well, I wonder how they came. That is so far out of what anybody else is doing. I wonder how they arrived at that, and then I wonder how that fits in with the whole European goal. Will be France be pushing for that to be the European standard?
Nah, I don't think so, because the other members of EASA would block that. And from what I know, the EASA rules are getting accepted and translated to the different countries. So those are the ones that might be coming in the form of law someday, sooner or later. But the French guys they just want to be different.
That is, as Bruce has said, that's quite a thing. If that's coming in on the 1st of July to comply, that's quite a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I can ask some, because some of our ArduPilot partners are based in France, so I can ask them around what they feel and what's their take on these proposed new rules. I'm sure they are very happy with this clear definition of rules. Come on, any rule is better than no rules, Bruce. You know that better than one.
Ridiculous rules are not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's rumored that you also have to be able to carry a tray of eggs over a ploughed field and deliver them without breaking one.
Hey, I've had 3 of those cars. They're fantastic.
So
and I could wear my top hat.
Come on, Bruce, you're seeing too much Top Gear. See how the eggs ended up on the end of that movie on Top Gear. No eggs at all.
Yeah, no, it's a great car. It's a great car. Love those cars. Well, I suppose it's a standard. And where are we at with America and getting its electronic conspicuity? I don't think you've really started down that road properly yet, have you?
But you want to talk about standards in general, you know? Because I mean, that'd be another good topic. You know, everybody's talking about standards. Let's talk about standards. So, you know, ASTM has been working on standards now for since 2005. I was at the first meeting for F-38 in Reno, and RTCA has almost been working on standards almost as long. Does anybody know how many like ASTM standards have been adopted by civil aviation authorities around the world after all those years? 13 years of work.
I believe it's quite a big round number, isn't it?
Like 1. And I think it's the Civil Aviation Authority in Brazil. So when even, you know, we talk about let's talk about even flying over people. Remember, we want to fly over people. We got to work on. ASTM has been working on that standard for 4 years. Now Ted Wears-Banowski is termed out. He's leaving. I hear there's a leadership change. So now we're talking about starting over again with the flying over people and the pilot standards and all the rest of this. To me, I've called this whole thing like the regulatory wheel of suffering. For any Buddhists out there, it's like we've got these moving targets and we throw darts at them, and maybe this will work, and maybe that'll work. Maybe this will work. Let's do this, and this will work. But the numbers don't seem to show that they're getting better. Or maybe that they're even getting worse. We don't know. We still don't have any of that data.
No, it's a complete mess. And just as this program is at the moment, let's jump back to that reauthorization thing while we've got Jonathan. There's no jackhammering. So you saw UTMs, you saw potential pay to play. What did you see for model aircraft flyers? Because we need to bring the AMA side of things back into this. They're in trouble and they're asking for help.
Are they?
Well, yeah. Well, they are. They've got their petition. Section 336 must be.
I see this as like I said earlier, the gauntlet has been thrown down, and it's time to jump up and I'd go whole hog. My advice to them was to mobilize the membership and get all of their members to write. But I would also get my local chapter presidents or group presidents or whatever to contact their Congress people and go and meet with them. And I'd basically be like, get your meat hooks off of my safe and wholesome hobby. And if you look at the statistics for AMA, it's a pretty safe program.
Yeah, very much so.
80 years. They've had a few fatalities and whatever, but 80 years, I mean, really you could extrapolate a lot of hours of flying out of that, and a safety program that works. Are they responsible for, every bad actor? No. There's another, even all the rest of this. I mean, are these bad actors going to be putting, beacons on their drones before they go do something nefarious? I don't know.
Of course they are. It's the law.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's a law. And in the United States, everybody follows the law. It's great. Personal responsibility should be on the quarter, right under God we trust.
Well, the AMA have sort of listened to you. They've got their what's the thing called? It's called a oneclickpolitics.com petition that you can sign, and it says, as a recreational flyer, I am writing to you today to urge you to preserve Section 336 of the 2012 FAA Modernization and Reform Act, so on and so forth. Flying model aircraft is much more than a hobby. It's an effective tool for teaching science, etc., 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 etc. And
I've seen some of these movements in US about writing the congressman, and every advice that I see on other issues is, don't email them, write them, because it will swamp their offices, and they'll make them pay attention if you write a physical letter.
Well, I think that's what email. Go there yourself. That's why I'm saying, if you get the local chapter presidents, they say, okay, well, I'm going to go talk to my House member, call them up. I mean, you go talk to a staffer. 24-year-old staffers are really running this country. You go talk to them and you say, hey, we got this wholesome hobby here. We're flying around. We're teaching the kids. Everybody talks about STEM and all the rest of this. And this is really what we're about. We're not doing the Best Buy thing. I mean, I don't think anybody's really paying attention to what's going on here. Even this drone, commercial drone alliance is Hogan levels. It's two people that are not. They're not RC people. They're not drone people. They're hired guns. And the thing is with Hogan Levels, I mean, I had a conversation with Rich. I said, you know who these people are? I mean, this is the same law firm. It's a huge law firm, and they're all around the world. But they do the taxes for the Clintons. Aiken Gump. When the Small UAV Coalition was with Aiken Gump, Aiken Gump had lobbyists that had cabinet positions in the Obama administration. Well, they weren't. They were called attorneys when they got that. But the thing is what I'm getting at is these are like high-powered lobbyists. This isn't, like the AMA where you have Johnny and Janie and Billy want to fly the plane. These people, this is what their job is to get language written into laws. So the way I see it is it's pretty much a full frontal attack on the hobby. We notice that Google is it's Alphabet over there. Alphabet's doing it, not Google. And I don't know why they're trying to hide behind that or whatever. But if we don't, okay, we're going to get rid of 336, but we're not going to really do anything where we're going to have point of sale registration at Best Buy, where we're going to have licensing that you can basically get out of a box of sugary cereal. The situation is not going to change. You're going to be playing whack-a-mole with people who are buying drones at big box stores. And I think it's a little disingenuous of DJI. I've said this before. You want to clamp down on this, you start registering anything that comes in from overseas with multiple propellers as an aircraft. They come in now and they're taxed as toys. So are they toys? Are they aircraft? Where are they? And I think the DJI and other companies need to do more they talk about safety, but why would you be advertising that your aircraft fly 7 kilometers away? I mean, is that legal anywhere? It's not legal anywhere I know. I mean, why do you even have that capability? Why would you advertise that capability? So I think it's time for the big box stores to step up to the plate, and they have to do point of sale registration. Maybe there has to be a one pager. Oh, look, hey, FAA, there's rules.
But are they even going to care after next Christmas? Because last Christmas sales were already down. This coming Christmas, they're going to be down even more. The big box stores, if it gets too hard, surely they'll just walk away.
You're talking a reality that a lot of people aren't really talking. I can't speak to the rest of the world, but people, they keep saying all these drones are being sold. I used to see more drones. You drive by the park, there'd be a drone. If there was a landmark or something, there were usually people flying around it. I don't really see that as much anymore.
No, I think people buy them and fly them once, and it's a hassle, and they don't fly them because I never see them. I mean, I never see them in New York. I never see them in Florida where there should be millions of them. So I don't know where they're flying.
Should be millions. That's former FAA wording. Should be millions.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that she probably doesn't live near Casey at Neistat, or you'd be seeing drones flying everywhere, Loretta. I'm kidding, of course. I do think we've hit peak drone. The other thing is Jonathan had a great graphic over at his site, which when I was over there the other day, like actual registration, and then the low number estimates and the high number estimates. What did you think about that, Jonathan?
There was a gap, kind of considerable, and yeah, it was pretty bad. It looks like wide scale non-compliance. And so when people are talking about remote ID or whatever remote ID means, I've heard remote ID mean a bunch of different things, and some people mean it's some type of like detect and avoid capability. Some people were explaining it in such a way as that it's like some type of idiot proofing of a drone, so the idiots can't go out and do things. So I don't even know what people mean by remote ID since I've heard it a bunch of different ways. But if you're going to do anything more than $5, whatever that effort is, right? And going through an easy checkout process on a website, I think the compliance is going to be way worse than that graph that I have up, and it's going to be pretty crazy. And what will end up happening, I am afraid, is that you'll end up having a lot of the law-abiding citizens will end up getting taxed with this, while the illegals and idiots and everybody will just go and do whatever they want to do, and it'll hurt the wrong people and not punish the people that really should be punished.
Yeah, but nobody buys a toy and thinks it has this whole regulatory scheme. I talk to people all the time who have absolutely no idea that the toy they're buying needs to be registered, that you have rules for flying. Nobody. I mean, I talk to people all the time, and I feel bad because I usually end up scaring them about the whole drone thing. And I'm like, it's a great thing to do, but there are rules, there's a website, there's registration, and their heads are spinning.
Yeah, she's exactly right. The other, when you start talking about the fines and stuff, people are like, what? If you don't want to buy something less dangerous, you get the kid a gun, go buy him a BB gun or something. And,
but aren't we overcomplicating this? Do we really need to have all these rules and regulations? Where are all these rules and regulations coming from? What facts are they based on? And what is the real danger?
My
that is it. You hit the nail on the head, Gary.
My question is, how would US conform or not with international regulations? Would have their own standards? So, because the current proposals from international boards are a bit different of what this new legislative rush is going on US.
Well, look at the registration task force, you know, and the 250 grams. I call that the shot in the foot heard around the world.
Yeah,
Everything.
that's global.
Yeah.
Now you hit the nail on the head, Gary. And, you know, I've known you for a while. That was funny too, as I was remembering back from the ARC days, and I think that was one of our first interactions, probably in about 2008. And I think I asked you to provide me the ICAO definition of frangible during one of the meetings, which you helped me out with that one, and I actually used it in one of the meetings. What we have here, you know, and in some of this hobby frustration from even back in 2008, like I said, I was looking through the notes. No defined data sets. I still don't see any defined data sets. I still, you know, when I went to the I call it the Dak and Pony show back in February of last year, not this year, and we were talking about some of the same assumptions. I'm just like, how can this be? Nobody really knows who's flying around, where they're flying around, you know, when, how many, and then we're like, oh, we're going to build this UTM system. Well, for how many people and where? What do we need? Oh, I don't know. You know, don't bog me down in the details. We're building this, you know, $400 million UTM system that we have no idea how it's going to integrate with the MAN system, or if the air traffic controllers union's even going to buy in. Oh, don't bother me with that stuff. I've got a UTM to build over here. That's how I see it.
And which UTM are you going to pick of the now 6 or 7? I know the one that we favor here. That's the one that uses the words AI and what was it?
No,
crypto. Blockchain. That's it. Blockchain.
Oh, blockchain.
Yes. So as long as it's got AI and blockchain in it, then it's got to be good. It's got to be good.
We have to add a new one, which is crowdsourced.
Okay.
Crowdsourced blockchain AI. Yes.
Well, there's no standards. I got to find a picture from the slide from the FAA UAS symposium that the Amazon guy sent, and I'm going to send it to you. There's 6 boxes in it, but on one side they have ATC, TCAS, and ADSB, and the pilot. And those are how air traffic control and detect and avoid is done. And on the other side, they have UTM, vehicle to vehicle, and I forget what the last box was. And it's like, you know, the one side is all certified, it's tested, it's tried, it's true, and the UTM thing is a total pipe dream. And that's how I see it. Blockchain aside, that's just the stuff about the blockchain.
Right. It's not well. As soon as they fit blockchain, it'll work. It'll be fine. It'll be brilliant. It'll be fantastic. Especially
with a bit of crowdsourcing. Don't forget, Gary.
Yes, and a sprinkling of AI. Always a sprinkling of AI. Yeah, no, it is nonsense, and the AMA is being thrown under the bus. But what I will say, and what I wanted to say was, as I click, and I've put the link in the live chat, as I click that link, now I've clicked away from it. There's only 463 people have actually signed that, but that's going to make absolutely no difference at all. I suspect, 5G, yes, old time, we're going to have some 5G. 5G, you've got to have 5G. You're absolutely right. Silly me. How could I have forgotten the 5G? But 463 signatures. I suspect DJI have sold 400 aircraft in the time we've been talking so far today in America, certainly in the world. It's the AMA. They need supporting. They need help, and we can't let model aircraft be thrown under the bus. That's just not on.
Sorry, a large organization like AMA perhaps has those active members because all the others are passive members, and they don't care because they go and fly to their flying fields, and those will be outside of the scope of the new rules, right? When you go and fly to an approved field, you're okay. You can do whatever you want. So it doesn't concern those other 300 members.
But there's issues with that, though. I mean, you know, there was always talk, and even during the ARC, there was this like, if you're not on the AMA field, you're not a hobbyist. I don't feel that way. I'm a responsible user. I used to use the RCAPA guidelines, whatever. The thing here is, you know, it's not so much being an AMA member. You know, when you're a member of a club, and I'm not really an AMA member now, you know, there's that old Groucho line that like, I wouldn't want to be a member of any club that would have anyone like me as a member. And some of that is true, but there's also like you go out to the field and there's kind of a pecking order thing, and I'm not really into that. I'm a guy who likes to go and by myself and fly in the park with my little phony and just fly around and fly scale or whatever when I'm flying hobby wise. I shouldn't have to, let's say, under duress, have to pay $75 to a 501c3 so I can fly my, you know, 850 gram foam plane around. The other thing is in states like California, and I don't know if, you know, if you guys read the news in the rest of the world, but land here is very expensive. So if I wanted to go charter a club to go fly at, it would cost me a lot of money to go do that. And then I'd have to have the insurance and everything else. Now, I'm just a guy that wants to recreate for personal enjoyment. You know, why do I need to pay the freight on a $10 billion company that just wants to move product here in the United States and around the world? That's not my problem, you know.
Well, that's the and I'm getting distracted, but that's the other thing with the UTMs, isn't it? It's a race to control the UTM so that package delivery company A can make sure that its packages gets there a minute before package company B, and that's a very big danger with the UTMs and things, that those people that are standing this all up. And is it just me, or is it just flipping obvious what they're trying to do, and why is no one jumping up and down about it?
It should be obvious, but they're not jumping up and down about it because most of the drone experts, it's a cyclical thing here. People get into drones, they're all hot and heavy for a couple years, they can't make any money, and they get out. But I don't know if you saw the picture for the airspace that Amazon came up with at the UTM NASA thing a few years ago. Saw that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when we were at no, you weren't at the last Farnborough. At the last Farnborough, Amazon were there, and the guy from UKCA stood next to me and just quietly said, "That'll never happen."
Exactly. But when I saw that, the first thing that I said was, "Oh, geez, you know what this looks like? This looks like that cockamamie idea somebody had, or the idea of where the FCC was licensing off bandwidth for third parties to administer and everything." I go, that's what that looks like. And of course, that Egan guy's crazy. He's got a tinfoil hat on. Yada, yada, yada. So did anyone see the report from the DAC Working Group 3, where they gave the example? This has just happened recently, and they gave the example of how the FCC back in the 90s auctioned off bandwidth, and maybe we should do the same with the airspace. So, and you know, if you're a Google or somebody else and you're controlling the airspace and people are paying you to get in there, and then this is where the blockchain kicks in, because there's new people talking about UTM. You'll get a royalty for every drone that flies over your house, because it'll be some blockchain horse pucky about, you know, they'll know where the drone is. So if it flies over there, then I'll appoint, you know, 0.02 cents into your bank account for every drone that. And I go, well, what about the aircraft? Well, sure, aircraft too. But this, I mean, when you see a claptrap like this in the DAC task group report, another guy from Doug tried to say, well, people were just throwing ideas out there for people to kind of chew on and whatever else. To me, if you're even talking that nonsense, you shouldn't even be wasting anybody's time on that task group. And number two, where is the federal oversight? Where is the person coming in here and saying you're just wasting everyone's time? You know, I think we all need to step back, do some science, figure out how many people are actually flying in the NAS, where they're flying in the NAS, and then plan accordingly. I don't think a UTM is even needed everywhere. I think out in the country, It should be something where you have endorsements and more training, and maybe you need a little bit more equipage. But if you're in Corn Bluff, Iowa, and you're 25 miles from town, and there's no people and there's no air traffic, why shouldn't you be able to fly 300 acres of corn?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Bruce, you're very silent today. Let's try and get you in again. There, your experience UTM right now, aren't you, with the trial from that fantastic company that's come down and offered their services to New Zealand? How's that going? Oh, Bruce,
we've got air maps down here. They're sort of doing it around the world. They're pushing in with governments and saying, hey, trial our product and you can see how well it works. And then, of course, once there's the commitment of time, energy, and capital to trialing it, if you're going to choose a product, well, what are you going to choose? You're going to go through that whole learning curve and reinventing the wheel thing again. So they're very, very clever in their marketing. The product doesn't stack up nearly as well as some other products, but it's, as we know these days, it's not about the product, it's about the marketing. You can sell ice to Eskimos if you've got the right man on the job. And that seems to be what they're doing here. And our government's our civil aviation's buying into it. They're going to had a trial in the South Island. They're going to roll it out nationwide. And they expect people who have got their little Phantom or their SEMA drone to log on through their smartphone. And in New Zealand, 4G bandwidth is really expensive. So they're going to log on. They're going to put in the details. I'm taking off now and the flight plan and everything. It's not going to happen. And even some of the basics, like if you get their air map app and you look at it and you can see, oh, someone's flying a drone 2 miles up the road, but I don't know who it is. I can't contact them. I've got no idea how long they're going to be flying. All I know is something there, so I can't plan my flights because there's no interaction between the users of the system. It's like it's just a money grab, a land grab for this whole UTM thing. It's going to be a hotly fought war, and there's companies out there spending a lot of money marketing right now, and we're going to be the losers.
Yeah. Well, I want to throw in another air map thing. Even here in the United States, we've got people, let's say, lobbying and advocating for local law enforcement to enforce the FARs and come up with their own rules. And that same company has this income stream opportunity where they come to local municipalities and they say, well, you've got your own rules. You can't fly at this park and you can only fly over here to 50 feet and whatever else your local rules are. Well, what we're going to do for you on a yearly contract, of course, you're going to pay us however much money. We're going to put your local rules right in here in our cell phone app. So that way, when people are flying, they know what your rules are. And if you come down on them and write a ticket or whatever, there's no plausible way that they can say they were unaware of the rules here, because this is the world's premier drone airspace app right here. So be aware of that. Most of these people are not your friends.
Sorry, Gary, what can stop them from monetizing and issuing fines if you fly where you shouldn't? So it's a revenue stream that they can build on top of those apps.
Well, I'm for federal preemption myself. It's the same deal with the leaded avgas. The FAA stepped in and said, no, we have jurisdiction on that. And, I live under the approach of an airport here, and they've been dumping lead on me with that 100 low lead gasoline. They call it low lead, but that's really a misnomer. There's actually hundreds of metric tons of lead that's dumped indiscriminately around the country every year. And everybody knows that no amount of lead is good for kids, but the FAA stepped in because it would create problems for GA if they all had to buy let's say new motors for their 172s or whatever else. So really, it's my experience, 15 years here, it's not really about safety. It's about trying to find an immediate solution for immediate problem, and moving on to the next problem that the lobbyists can get some money for. That's what I've seen here.
Any safety information?
I think it's like security theater. It's kind of like registration. It's just kind of, let's throw something out there, pretend it works, and then move on. So that's what they're doing here. I mean, that's how I see it.
And in New Zealand, Bruce has a scheme to drop lead. I was watching your video about your lead dropping scheme the other day, and Patrick's just talking about a few grams. So you're going to do a kilogram at a time, aren't you, Bruce?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've had reports here. There was a drone sighted, another drone sighted at our international airport. It turned out to be a balloon, and it was quite funny because in the report, the Airways New Zealand, the people who control the airspace, said, "Oh, balloons pose no risk to aircraft." And I thought, "Oh, okay, that's interesting to know." So I went to the local regulatory handbook and had a look, and sure enough, if you've got a balloon that weighs under 2 kilograms, it's unregulated. So I did the math. If you get a 1.5 cubic meters of hydrogen, you can lift nearly 2 kilograms. So if you take, say 300 grams for the balloon, you can lift a 1.5 kilogram lead weight into the air, and you have no control because it's just free floating. There's no restrictions on where you can let it go. You can do it at the local airport. And apparently, if your light aircraft or your 737 or A320 crashes into this 1.5 kilograms of lead suspended from a balloon, it will cause no harm at all. But your 25-gram plastic toy flown in a field 2 miles from the airport can net you a $1,500 fine because it's too dangerous. The rules are just way out of touch with reality. And it's like, so I'm going to start a free balloon FPV movement where we can just put cameras and video transmitters on balloons and release them at will all over the countryside because we've been told they're safe.
Well, we have the same deal here where you can fly weather balloons with, monitoring packages. I forget what it is. I don't remember what it is off the top of the head, but it's a couple of pounds. It's a few pounds, and you can just launch a balloon. You don't have to tell anyone, and you can just launch it wherever and whenever you want. I forget what it is. Anybody know that off the top of their head here that knows anything about the flyers?
Well, the thing that amazed me was that after this balloon was sighted and it disrupted air traffic at our busiest airport for quite some time, there was no call for harsher balloon regulations. There was no call for the registration of balloon owners. There was none of the calls with drones. And I don't see the parity. I don't see the, this just doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, drones are a special category that has to be vilified, whereas the real threats, the balloons and things, no, we don't care about those. So it's like, it just makes you laugh, and you'll never get compliance when you act that stupidly.
I'm with Chris in the comments. I too, it's one of my nerdy hobbies is launching high altitude balloons with 10 milliwatt radios up to 800 kilometer range. But anyway, so don't ruin it for us, Bruce. Come on, you've ruined the rest of this hobby. Stay away from it. And if you're interested in near space ballooning, then heavens above. Space Near Us. SpaceNearUs.com is where you want to go, and you see launches all around the world. And if you want to get some gear, there's some great open source trackers for finding radiosondes, Met balloons, and then you can repurpose their very expensive transmitters. Anyway, so ends my nerdy hobby. Yeah, no, there are some rules. I mean, the Met balloon rules are exactly that. They're Met balloon rules for when at 2 o'clock every day people let balloons off to check the weather. And of course, in New Zealand, you've got Google Loon is using their all the time. They're a bit more than 2 kilos. Shame, Loretta. You're going into spring. You need to get that sorted out. You shouldn't have a cold for summer.
Either that or get off the cigarettes. You got to quit hanging out with that guy from Portugal.
yeah, exactly. Now, what else were we gonna rattle through tonight? I can't remember. We rattled through enough about the AMA and the troubles that's over there at the moment.
I think they got to get serious. What did you say? There was 400 and what? How many?
63, I think. Yeah, 463 people have signed up. In America.
Sorry, Gary. Wouldn't it be good get guys like flight test community involved on that? Because we've seen and we've had Josh here, and their community is pretty much engaged. If they get engaged, I'm sure it will explode those numbers quite heavily. Because,
well, hopefully, Rich and the guys from AMA will join us next week. They promised me they're having a big meeting about this very subject tonight, and chatting away about it. It's an issue, it's a problem, and I'll try and get the flight test guys here as well. But yeah, big communities need to get in it, and love or hate the AMA, we should get behind it. It's gonna it'll really put the kibosh on youngsters getting into this and innovation moving forward. Without the I put a little video up about Maynard Hill today. Without they just could be knocking the next Maynard Hill on the head, and we don't want that. Don't want that at all.
Yeah. And the one thing I think they've got to realize is these calls to action are great. We're going to set an online petition up, but you run a very real risk that if you don't get the support, then your opponents look at it and go, ha, 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 they're powerless. They've got no backing, no support whatsoever. The other thing to remember is that the regulatory authorities and the governments will do what they want to do. I mean, look how much motivation, how many forces were mobilized against the compulsory registration system. And what happened? It was introduced regardless. People wrote to their senators and everything, but it was introduced regardless. Then, even after John Taylor had it thrown out, they just went around the back door and did it again. So you really have to wake up to the realization that we're pretty powerless. We could mobilize every single drone owner in the world and get them to submit submissions, and the government of the day, if there's these lobbyists are there, with money, it's all pretty much a waste of time, because the government will do and the regulators will do what they want to do. End of story. I've seen it here. It's just, forget about the illusions of democracy and representation. In the real world, it just doesn't occur.
Yeah, hang on a minute. I've got to make it. I'll just make a note here. Bruce Simpson always gives in to the man. There we are. I've made the note.
No, I think that's not. Some people might say that he's a pessimist, but I've been on the planet almost 52 years, and I share some of that. I mean, the registration thing was a setup. The people that were on the registration task force or whatever were tipped off by myself and other people that was coming, and it was pretty much a done deal. And that they paid lobbyists to get on there. They gave consensus. We have to remember that the AMA, Rich Hansen, and maybe this is a question you can have him elaborate on, or a topic next week, wanted to enter dissenting opinion into the record, and the rest of the, I'm not even going to call them Benedict Arnolds, I don't even know what they are, wouldn't support the AMA to put a dissenting opinion into the record. And to me, these people, like, the representation from DJI and 3D Robotics and, et al., should be friends of the modeler, but on the other hand, they just shrugged their shoulders and said, okay, whatever. We'll give you consensus. There's no way I would have went along with that junk science. And that's the problem that we have here. We do not have a unified front. We don't have any money. We don't have, and I think that's only getting worse, because, we used to have more people in the United States that manufactured and distributed and wholesaled these RC products. Those are dwindling. The Chinese manufacturers are cutting out the middleman, and we're going to, as time goes on, we're going to have less and less resources and be less and less of a credible, let's say, resistance to this. And I think the AMA is at the end of their rope. They got to jump up now and decide they're going to do something, because I think in another 4 or 5 years they won't have the support to do anything but be relegated to their hobby flying field, and that'll be a shame.
In the end, who wins are the Amazons and Googles of this. No, not even DJIs or whatever, or Unix, or those guys would make anything of it. It's the big bucks that are coming.
I think even the other manufacturers are on the ropes. You look. This is another thing I think is kind of interesting. Let's look at the numbers. Everyone says now they're starting to say that DJI has 80% of the market. Is DJI 80% of the problem? Do they need to do something to fix their?
I don't believe those numbers, and I'll tell you why. It's because you a couple of years ago you could get through the registration data and look. I've just done it here for South Africa, so I've got to speak at a conference here. I don't know, May sometime, and so I've just gone through the numbers here. They have 52% of the market here. For the commercial market of the registered aircraft. When we could follow the numbers and we could keep up with it, I don't think it ever went above 50% of commercially licensed, stuff you could, the truth, well, should we call it the truth? Stuff that you can actually track. Otherwise, it's supposition. You're just making it up. So, yeah, I
agree with you. I don't think any of the numbers, I call it drone algebra, and I don't think any of the numbers are credible. Any of the estimates, None of them. And it, let's say it has caused me to butt heads with other people in the industry, but I don't buy any of the numbers that anybody's talking about. I mean, the first one kicked it off was that AUVSI fantasy forecast, and people just keep extrapolating off of those numbers. It's just,
you mean the fantasy farming forecast?
Just, well, fantasy forecast in general. I mean, an interesting side note is, this is an $82 billion industry, and last year AUVSI lost 20% of their membership.
20% of what?
They went from 7,500 members to 6,000 members, and I called them on it. I go, well, doesn't look like everything's rosy to me, man. And they said, well, what happened there is it's a new accounting method that we're using. We're not actually down members. We just have a new accounting method. And I said, oh, it's probably because you need to go up there on the hill, and and instead of looking like you're a braggart and saying, well, we have 10,000 members or 7,500 members, we can say, Congressman Bag of Donuts, we have 6,000 members. And that sounds a lot more impressive. What?
They moved their math system to base 12. Yeah.
Yes. Well, but of course, the frightening thing there, though, is that it doesn't actually matter. You could have 10 members. If those 10 members are all massively wealthy military drone makers, you're going to have a much bigger shout than the AMA with its 60, 70, 80. I'm not sure how many thousand members they've got. So the AMA have got 10 or 20 times the membership of AUVSI, yet they don't have a voice.
Perhaps because only 400 members are active and the other 85,600 are just quite happy flying on their flying fields.
Well, or those members don't have email, This is another, thing that's kind of interesting that's going on here, and there are things going on a larger political level, but, we have now AUVSI has DJI on. And I don't know that that's totally a bad thing. There was no vote or whatever, but that's okay. You got them on there. But the thing is how can you have, it seems kind of, Boeing left. So you're going to have these
Boeing left?
AUVSI is a board member. Yeah, they left.
Wow.
Which seems peculiar to me. I was like, well, didn't anyone go to get them back? Well, not worth my time. Okay. Sounds good to me. But my thing with it is here you have like legacy aerospace, DoD people, and a Chinese toy maker. Okay. In the United States here, we have a situation where these are all imported as toys. We can't export our technology, our 15 and 20-year-old technology, because of ITAR. And the Chinese are out doing cash and carry with ARM UCAVs anywhere in the world. Does that make any sense? No. I think someone's been asleep at the switch. And incidentally, Gary, is that an Ames Research Center T-shirt that I sent your son years ago?
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes.
You bastard.
Yeah, I know. What you going to do? They were too small. They were too small, I know
they're probably all like 6'5" now. And,
yes. They're both. The other ones are up there. Yeah, I know. There's been lots of skullduggery. Since we really started playing this game or playing close attention, 2005, 6, 7, 8. There's lots of nonsense been going on, and ITAR, that's the elephant in the room that is always forgotten, always forgotten. And what you gonna do? What you gonna do? I see people talking about. Sorry, Patrick. I see people talking about homemades in the comments, and funny enough, that is so the second biggest manufacturer in South Africa is SenseFly. They have 8% of the market here, and then just about all the rest are home built of various sorts, and an awful lot of fixed wing. But anyway, fiddle around with that data some more. But you can only, I think, if you're talking any stats in this industry, you can only go with the known, and the known here is the stuff that's been registered. So I know what's been registered, and it's a known, and then the rest is just a guess. It is absolutely just a guess. I know. But talking about, I did want to talk about an American manufacturing thing, and I'm glad you're here, Patrick, because you can explain this turn to me. Out of Iron picked up a $250 million infinite delivery, infinite quantity. What on earth does that mean? Infinite delivery, and it's only 250. I don't understand.
I couldn't go into the details on that, but it sounds open-ended to me. I will say that since we broke the let's say DoD document over here, the people have been scrambling looking for this $1,000 drone made in the United States, and it just doesn't. It's not here, and I don't think it'll ever be here. I know you wrote an article about tariffs and whatnot, how that might be bad for the drone industry, but I actually think it might be good for the domestic drone industry, which there should be one.
Well, I know people are talking about Pixhawks and the Cube in the comments, and I know they're being made in America shortly, completely made in America, so that they can be proved to be free of I don't know quite how to put this, free of troubles, shall we say? Free of
the Pixhawks or the Cubes. I believe it's
Cubes are being made in America for. Well, perhaps I've already mentioned the name of one of the companies, but for various companies that want to do that sort of a thing.
The other elephant in the room, we've got like a herd of elephants in this business.
There is a herd. There is a herd.
Herd of elephants. So I was at this FLIR meeting the other day, and I think I may have pissed them off. I don't know how I do this, but so I was asking the question. We have the new 210, and we're going to sell that to law enforcement. And I said, well, is anyone telling law enforcement that they have geofencing? And you might have a situation or incident where you're unable to use your aircraft. And they looked at me like well, they weren't happy, but we can't really address that right now. But, we had an incident here in the United States, a big one, not too long ago, where let's just say I don't want to give the incident out, but it was a big incident, and it was in Class Bravo airspace, and the FBI tried to fly their stuff, and purportedly geofencing was on, and they were not able to use the equipment. That does not sound like a good use of taxpayer dollars, one. Two, it sounds like a limitation to me that law enforcement shouldn't have. And three, that doesn't even take what I call the CHICOMs into consideration, and the custody of, let's say, evidence.
Come on, they're only a phone call away to China to, hey, I'm a law enforcement agency, please
Okay, well, so you're saying that the FBI is supposed to call Becky in Shenzhen and go, hey, unlock our drones because we just had a situation here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not. I don't think that really, if law enforcement knew that that's what they were up against, I don't think that they would purchase. And I don't think it's something that they lead with. But or even Homeland Security, we just had a, terrorist attack near Class B airspace, and we want to fly our drones to get a tactical look at the situation. Well, here's Becky's number in Shenzhen. Give her a call. And you got to hope that Becky's manning the phone and Becky's not in bed. That's just not very realistic, in my estimation.
Yeah. Well, that should have been in their buying decision, shouldn't it? Really.
Yeah, but is that something you ask? Is that like, when I buy the drone, am I going to have to call anyone in Shenzhen to turn off the geofencing?
Well, I didn't say goodbye to Jonathan. He had to go, and the rest of connections dropped out. It's just us now. So that's the lawyers. That's the lawyers gone. So we're all right.
Gary, we have the solution, and the solution is the sub 250 gram new drone by coming from the Hobbit lands.
Yes, from the Hobbit drone, and you can probably carry a fleet of hobbits in it. 250 grams, probably.
It's got furry feet and everything.
Very likely.
No, because it's quite adequate to do. It's an Hobbit drone, so it's a smaller drone, right, Bruce?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. When it crashes, it makes a hole. It's just going home.
Yes, yes, that's true. Yes, builds its own property. But back to what people buy. If they do their due diligence, gosh, what were they all going to be called back in the day? They were all going to be called there was a word, there was an acronym. I remember, because of course in this industry, there's an acronym every couple of months. What RAPS, wasn't it? RAPS. Yes, that was it. RAPS, Robotic Aircraft for something services. But yeah, surely they'd gone through the whole procedure with that, then they would have realized limitations.
Yeah, but that, now you're talking like, okay, so the guy that goes to Best Buy is going to be, doing his due diligence to know that he's going to buy the drone and not fly,
Yeah, but
this is America, Gary. Nobody reads the small print.
The FBI doesn't go to Best Buy, surely.
No, they probably had somebody come by and go, oh, we marked this up 300% for you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, that happens everywhere, doesn't it? I mean, that's a given. I believe, although do I believe? I believe there's been some more guidance on purchasing equipment from overseas, and I think that's where I'll leave that. But you've got to read the memos.
Makes people popular. Now, the other. Do you guys get Vice News down there? I know you're a big fan of it.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay, so they just did a thing on facial recognition software, and I thought it was interesting too, because you remember DJI was like, "Oh, that ICE document facial recognition." Oh, so they just did this deal down there, and guess where? Like the biggest and best facial recognition software companies. Where are they from, Gary?
I wonder. I have no idea. I couldn't put two and two together.
Shenzhen, China.
Yeah, no, I saw that as well. Yeah.
The other thing I thought was pretty interesting is the Chinese government's got a VC fund. I don't know if you caught that, but they invested $500 million into this software company.
Well, this is your, but also this is your. When I put that thing about it's going to hurt the American drone industry, I was amazed. More than one person emailed me and said they've got to get off there. They'll serve them right. They've got to get off from America. Got to get off their lazy asses. They accuse the industry there of being lazy, but the reality is, China has pumped a great deal of money into getting to where they're at as quickly as they have. And that's what it takes. It takes a chunk of money and a chunk of people solving the problem.
Okay, well, and I didn't want to talk about the SUSB Expo, but it is coming up. I got the shameless plug up there. We are going to have a couple gentlemen come. There's a gentleman who's going to speak, and he's from the Shenzhen UAV Association, which there are a lot of manufacturers. We don't really hear about them here in the United States. Pardon me, that's Google.
Yeah.
They want to make sure my page ranking is doing okay, and I get that call 10 times a day. Anyway, forgot my train of thought.
About
the guys come from
Shenzhen. No, there are lots of manufacturers there.
Exactly. And the thing is if you ask most of those manufacturers, they will tell you that they can't compete with DJI at the price points and selling them overseas. And, I've talked to people at DJI. This is, we've had a long going. They think I'm a jerk because we publish this stuff on SUAS News, even though that's what the news is supposedly about. And they tried to say, well, we're just like Boeing, where the, government subsidizes us. And I said, really? I didn't know that Boeing was getting money from the Communist Party of China, but you learn something new every day. The thing is with that is they have invested, the government has invested in DJI, and I don't know all the ins and outs, machinations, and all the rest of that. But the thing is you cannot really compete with that here in the United States. You pay more for labor. We have rules in manufacturing. Environmental rules. Really, to try and be in business in California, you have to be a nut. It's probably the only place where it's worse is probably New Zealand, because I know you guys like rules down there, Bruce. But I mean, it's crazy. So there's no way that you're going to produce something for the same price point as DJI. And I will say that because people like to say, oh, you don't like DJI and you don't like the Chinese. I think the Chinese are very industrious and they're smart people and they know what they're doing. I think DJI makes a great product at a great price point. And I just think that, we've seen here 3D robotics and whatever else. I mean, really, was that, what happened there? Was it just that they couldn't compete? I don't think so.
They could, but they didn't want to, or couldn't, or had too much marketing around the issues. So perhaps some overselling, over-promising, under-delivering.
Well, yes. Remember the gimbals on that. Which one was it? The Solo or the Iris? No, it was the Solo, wasn't it? The gimbals weren't ready when the aircraft launched, and that doesn't help, does it?
No, but
the distribution was lousy. You go to DJI to almost anywhere in the world, and you get an agent of DJI, and you can get DJI off the counter easily.
A friend of mine's just done or just about to do exactly that. They're not bothering to take any gear to a country that he's going to. They're buying a matrice in country with the batteries. They're just taking the sensor with them. That's all they're doing. They're taking the sensor.
That's what we do. That's what we do. It's the easiest way. No hassle carrying batteries. No hassle carrying drones. Just get a drone at the final location and just take our specialized payload and point taken.
Well, I mean, even you look at the GoPro. I mean, I don't know, there's a lot of different perspectives on it. That a lot of this stuff is made in China. I think the idea, this is another thing, and I don't know if this happens around the rest of the world, but here in the United States, people still believe that the Chinese aren't really capable of designing their own high-tech goods, that's a total joke. I mean, DJI is a great example of them being able to design and produce, top-notch quality product pretty much on their own.
Yeah, but there's a company that I really would like to see to get along on the drone business. Is that company that launched that extremely expensive, fully autonomous drone?
Oh yes, the 2,500. I know what you mean. The one with the 12 cameras and diving through trees, and I can't remember its name.
That technology is ahead of DJI at the moment, and it's so bad that they cannot make that at the better price point. But
I think we know the answer there, don't we? That's the company that's shortly going to be bought out by DJI or someone, or Intel, or someone else, or Intel or DJI. One of them will be bidding for them, and I think that's what they've done with that. They've bought a thing to market that's getting people's attention.
I'm not sure that they would be bought by Intel because it uses NVIDIA inside. So,
yes. You could fix that.
Yeah. It strikes me. Sorry, Patrick. After you.
Oh, I'm going to jump subjects. I was going to ask some of the since we're all kind of like old timers in the room here. Now, you see these offerings that come out. Like, let me give you an example. So, just recently, I think it was either Verizon or Vodafone said that they were going to have this drone, and so next time when the cell phone service is out, we'll be flying this drone, and we're going to have it's totally new. We're going to have a flying cell, And I kind of was like, this isn't new. This has been done before. But, that system and even the zip line system, it seems like these people pick systems that are, let's say, long in the tooth and that there's better technology out there. Is anybody else noticing this and wondering, is it just it's tried, true, and tested, or, there's better stuff out there that they should be using?
Better PowerPoints from the guy that is selling that idea to them?
Yes. Well, I mean, I guess, but I mean, there's better technology out there than, I mean, I don't know. I look at the zip line thing and it's like, you can't really land anywhere and pick up samples and bring them back, which the kid on the motorcycle, the Chinese motorcycle, at least he can get samples and bring them back, or bring, somebody with him to administer inoculations or pass out cold beer, whatever, Zipline can't do that.
I waver between the zipline being genius and being useless. I waver between the two. But the one thing I'll say that they do have, they have utter control of the destination for the thing that this is going to be. Well, one thing you can certainly say for them, they are well ahead of Amazon in the delivery game and anybody else. At least they are delivering something and they're getting experience. You might not quite agree with the way that they're doing it, but at least they're doing it and getting knowledge. And the absolute control over the takeoff and the landing are vital in this game. And that's what all these delivery services just seem to be missing. These aircraft are going to be landing on streets where one week there's the children on school holiday, so there's bikes and balls and all that all over the street, and the next week it's clear. Obviously the drone, which we've forgotten the name of, eliminates that problem because it detects and avoids and moves on out the way. But there's I get the zipline, I get the constant reinventing of the wheel. Well, Bruce mentions, you get some 1950s popular mechanics who were the ones that his father gave to him, and you'll see ideas that are coming out all the time.
The Hyperloop.
The Hyperloop.
Hyperloop, exactly. You want a flamethrower with that, or a hat? So we were making fun of Elon Musk the other day, actually, with another speaker at the expo, and he says, oh, well, we didn't make the production on the cars, but how about a hat? How about, why don't you guys buy these hats? Yeah. If that doesn't work, you sell them a flamethrower.
By the way, the name of the drone company is Skydio.
Yes, thanks, Nick. Nick in the comments, Nick Liza, Skydio R1. But that looks very much like a product that's been made just into a product, only just into a product, a very expensive one, in order for someone to go, oh, I like that tech, to buy the company. It looks like they're making just enough to be noticed. And then, because it's a noisy thing. I don't know if you've seen all the review videos.
I've seen the latest video from Flight Test, and they push him to his paces. And it's a small drone, but it's capable. What's inside of it is what's interesting. Disregard the propellers, the noise, all that smarts can be put on any other vehicle, and that's what's fundamental on that product. And if they can manage to increase the production and hopefully reduce the costs, that would be a good competitor to DJI, because DJI is now moving away from the smaller drones, let's say the Phantom size. They're going smaller and smaller and smaller, and bigger with the industrial line. And these kind of smarts on a drone, being correctly controlled, could make some dents on the DJI market. It's just a matter of adapting that to different frames.
I think I'd like to think they've got a chance, but I'd also think that DJI had one of the first ones on day one and have reversed engineer it, and it will be in the Phantom 5 or 6 as quick as you like. I can't see them having a dominance over that sort of idea for long. They've got 5,000 engineers, haven't they?
Come on, they got 5,000 engineers. They were the first guys to use that Movidius chip that is now owned by Intel.
Yes,
that gave them a head start because they had exclusive to that chip, and these guys went with mostly out of the shelf parts that can build a really smart thing. That's the what's running the computer program that is running inside the drone is what is fundamental this here. I really would like to see those guys go ahead and make an inroad on the drone market.
We'll try and have them on. I'll try and tempt them. I doubt if they will, but we'll try and have them on, and Bruce can ask them the hard questions.
Yeah, well, I think you're right, Gary. This is another thing. I still hear this over here, where I'm kind of concerned about a monopoly with DJI, and I don't really think it's a good thing to have monopolies. I don't think it's good to be relying all on one manufacturer. But even here in Northern California, people say, "Oh, well, good news is we're still 3 years ahead of the Chinese." And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't say anything, but in my head, I'm playing back the tapes of another visionary from Berkeley who was like, Chinese will never catch us. We're 3 years ahead of them, And I'll let you guess who that might have been, but I'm like, you think you're 3 years ahead? I mean, the Chinese, you can put something on the internet and they'll have it produced and shipped over here before you can even put it out. And so it cracks me up. I don't.
Well, I mean, I'd love to visit Shenzhen one day. So at the expo, see if you can get us tickets, because apparently you can just walk around, and if you've got an idea for prototyping, it's in this factory, that factory, the other factory. You can walk around and get all the bits in no time at all, and get on with your prototyping. No shipping.
There's a very good Australian YouTube channel which has done just that. They've taken a tour around all the Shenzhen district. Yeah, a fantastic series. I'm surprised they got so few views and subscribers. It's a must-have. Anyone that's interested in this stuff needs to subscribe and watch those videos. Fantastic.
Now, it's funny you say that, Gary, because they're actually going to have a show in Shenzhen. And I've already been offered a table and all the rest of that stuff. I just don't I don't know if I'm going to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, as it were. But I've been told I should go because you'd just be amazed at what's going on there. And you'd get the factory tours and all the rest of that. So I might actually go to that. So if you want to go, we have a table or a booth already reserved for us.
Well, some tickets and a hotel, but I don't want a table. I've got a table. I've got a table here. I don't need a table. I've got a table.
Come on, Gary.
You'll meet and the tickets to get in. It's just the airfare. I don't know what it costs to fly.
Come on, Gary. You'll meet some of the Ardo Pilot, because Ardo Pilot is going to be present at that Shenzhen conference.
Yes, no, it does look an amazing place, and if as and Bruce has said, I'll look out for those videos. If you can, just walk and get. If you've got an idea and you can just walk around and get the bits, and you can get stuff 3D prototypes quickly and all that. If it's all there within walking distance, then it's hard to beat, really, isn't it? It's fair
Silicon Valley drones. It's over,
Well, maybe. Well, let's look. Talking about it's over. This should be over. It should have been over 22 minutes ago. Let's talk about the show before we. The show is coming up this coming weekend, isn't it, Patrick?
Actually, it's next week, and it's going to be good. We're gonna have some interesting. I've been learning some interesting things now. So we had several. We're going to have a demo day out on Treasure Island, and you're able to fly.
And that's the best thing about it, actually. It's on Treasure Island. This is a winner, so it's just the name. It's on Treasure Island.
Exactly. I'm changing my name to Long John Silver. It's going to be great. Going to get the eye patch and the parrot going. No, I'm kidding. But we are going to have the demo thing going, and we are going to have Dropcopter is going to do a demonstration. They're actually doing pollinating trees, cherry trees and almond trees. Almond trees in California, it's very, let's say, that crop is worth a lot of money. So it works. They've been doing some stuff. Epson's going to come out, and they have their Movario BT300s, which are a set of glasses that actually project the image that you see from the camera on the lens. And you can actually see through the lenses and keep your drone within visual line of sight. We also have another company that they've got like a micro radar that's actually small enough it can be flown on board, and they say they can tune it to look at different materials. They can also use it for collision avoidance, altitude, things like that. That ought to be pretty promising. We're going to have Gene Robinson, of course. You may have heard of Gene Robinson.
Hopefully another award. Well, he was on last week, and he said he was coming. coming on, having gone and picked up his award from that other show. I hope he deserves that award.
He should get some recognition. We have Jonathan Zierling from Kitty Hawk is going to speak. Mike Blades from Frost and Sullivan. We have some Rob Thompson from the Counter UAS Coalition. Now, that's another thing I thought was interesting, is I talked to 4 or 5 different counter UAS companies and said, hey, come on out. You could come out to Treasure Island. You can do a demo. You can invite whoever you want to the demo, because everyone's talking about counter UAS is what you probably see. And everyone has declined on doing a demonstration. Which I find kind of telling.
I wonder why.
Well, you know,
FCC. Anyway.
Probably because you know, even more snake oily than the drone thing is the counter drone thing. And the other issue with that's another thing with the UTM and the ID and tracking that I don't understand. If we were closer, I think we might have better solutions for counter UAS. And I'm just going to say there are no silver bullets for that. Maybe you guys have seen.
Well, there's plenty of RF bullets, and then thereby opens up the whole can of worms, isn't it? You chuck an RF out, and who stood behind it? This event, well, we can ask Patrick if it's going to be filmed. For the who's asking where and when is this, we can also ask Patrick now. When and where is this, Patrick?
Well, it's at the Marine Memorial Club in San Francisco, which is a great club. It's been there since 1946, and
that's old over there, isn't it? That's very old.
Well, it is very old, but you know, they were just wrapping up WW2, and you know, it used to be a Navy town and all the rest of that, and it's kind of an interesting place. They have lots of dioramas from, you know, famous battles that the Marines have, the halls of Montezuma and the shores of Tripoli and all the rest of that. It's kind of an interesting venue. And that's on the 25th, and on the 26th, then we'll be out at the SF Drone School Research Center on Treasure Island for demonstrations and presentations from people. We will videotape it. I don't think I'm going to live broadcast it like we used to. One thing about putting on a symposium in San Francisco is it's getting to be just, I mean, it makes Paris look like a deal. Let's just say that. Let's say if you want to serve coffee at the venue, it's $95 a gallon. And, you know, I don't know if anybody knows that, but a gallon of coffee only serves probably about 15 people. So it's pretty pricey.
What are these units of gallons of which you speak? I think we used to do those back in the day. What are these units? Let me just say this. There's 2 kinds of countries in this world. There's one that are on the metric system and the other one that has been to the moon. Okay. So, quick, Bruce, you've got to respond to that.
Bruce,
You'll have an answer.
Yet I seem to recall a probe headed for Mars where the Imperial system failed terribly to interface with the metric system.
It was a conversion algorithm thing, AI. I think it was blockchain.
You can't go wrong. Did it have any 5G?
Well, you know, that's funny that you say that. They just had a meeting at NASA. They had a UTM meeting at NASA. And I tried to register, and it was a little late. And I actually emailed PK. I was going to actually go as an observer. They don't really like me to, I don't think, go to those. They usually make me write white papers before I can go because I ask questions like, hey, what's the certification plan for this system? And things like that. And it really kind of lets the air out of the balloon. But I did see Jonathan from Skyward do a video, and he was talking about how they were going to use 5G for UTM. Sounds plausible to me.
Oh, absolutely. And the whole point of flipping 5G is it's all pico cells everywhere. And anyway, I've had a conversation with a regulator from another country where he said, no pun intended, well, that'll never fly because it's a cellular telephone system. But everyone's jumping on this 5G thing. And I've said it, as you've seen recently in LinkedIn, we still, I think I'm right in saying, I need to check, maybe Bruce knows, but I still think we don't have protected spectrum yet for UAS anywhere in the world.
I read somewhere the other day, actually, I'll try and find the reference, that there was a piece of bandwidth allocated internationally around about 1.2 gigahertz or around about there. I'll follow it up, actually, and I might send you an email on it because I thought, oh, that's interesting. Never knew about that. Just found this one document lurking around which had this information in it. So there may have been some allocations made, but I don't think they've been used.
No, I'm
Is
not.
that the GPS frequency, Bruce?
No, it's just a bit away from there. It's actually a little niche piece of spectrum that didn't look like it was going to be used very much at all, except maybe ham use. I'm not sure.
And I know.
What's going to happen when we have 25 million drones on that? Did you see that story where the Pew Research said that 8% of the American population owns drones? Did anybody see that? So I did like the quick math on that, and I did it, with the imperial style or whatever.
You're not thinking forwards. Think how many families in US have cars. Now, instead of cars, make standard family 4 people, and each one has their own drone.
Well, it puts it somewhere in the neighborhood of about 25 million drones out there, which is okay too. You can have 25 million drones if you want, but the thing with that is if we only have like 800,000 of those registered, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you have a compliance in the single digits.
Yeah. Well, these cyclical arguments. There's always cyclical arguments to these things. It's all I can tell you that in my opinion, the market is way overhyped at the moment. There's nowhere near as many. I bet you there's more in the bottom of cupboards not flying, having flown once or twice, than are actually operational out there. And the perceived threats.
There's a whole mess of them back there.
Yeah, well, and here, it's all messy. Yeah. I've got a bit of an issue.
It's interesting though. I find it interesting because a lot of people that were previously just into photography with DSLR cameras and things, a lot of those people have bought drones, and they're not the kind of people that leave them in a cupboard. They don't use them perhaps as often as they use a camera, but they are there and they take them with them and they use them a lot. And I think that community is growing, and that the whole camera community is moving towards drones, and they'll be a fairly large percentage of the actual drone users as opposed to drone owners.
And then we have rules and regulations in place. We don't need anything new for them. If you've said in New Zealand you can't fly near airports, you already can't fly near airports in America. You can't fly them here. So straight away we can mitigate that problem by having enforcement from our regulators. Why do we need to invent UTMs and registering this and this and this and this? But then I am preaching to the converted here, aren't I? It's pointless.
Because enforcement is fiscally negative. UTMs are fiscally positive.
Oh, fiscally negative and positive. Very good.
Even the, this Lance thing that they're going to roll out here,
Lance.
Whatever, the Lance, whatever you want to call it.
L-A-N-C, it's Lance.
Something you use to get rid of a boil.
Absolutely, exactly.
So, the thing is even, again, going over the ARC documents, remember in the olden days, you used to be able to fly 3 miles from an airport. And then in their infinite wisdom, they said, well, now we want it to be 5 miles from an airport. So how much, airspace did that, let's say, cut out of the pie? We've invented this Lance thing and this rollout and all the rest of this stuff. I don't think there's already a huge compliance issue here in the United States. And again, I can't speak to the rest of the world. But here in the United States, the word on the street is most people that are making money here are coloring outside the lines. I can't wait, 60, 90 days, never, for a waiver to fly, at night or over people or in Class B or whatever it's going to be. These people call up, they have a job tomorrow, and even the Lance thing, it's going to be in near real time. Okay, well, we'll see how all that works, but we have a issue here where people don't really care about the FAA. Let's talk about that FPV flight around the supposed FPV flight around the airport in Las Vegas. Remember, all of the advocates were like, we got it. Tar and feathering is too good for them. Hanging's too good. We got to nail them to the cross. Nothing. I think that the FAA is showing their hand that they're not even a paper tiger.
Well, then there's also, but it also speaks, and again, we've said this before, it speaks to then as a community, you should be pushing more for sort of pipe dreams, isn't it? But safe flying, and in a lot of ways, it doesn't really matter what's going to happen at airfield. But we need to be pushing safety and best practices and that sort of thing, carrot and stick. And I don't know where I was going with that. It's just as a community, it's not as dangerous. We know it's not as dangerous as the media makes out, and as long as everybody just plays nicely, everything's fine. And when they're not, we should jump on them. I didn't say that very well.
Yeah, but this, aviation is kind of predicated on this culture of safety. And again, as I said earlier, if you don't play by the rules or follow the FARs, the penalty for that is,
Are we really aviation? Are we really, really, really aviation?
Is the best
So
buy generation?
really? I don't think so. I think the 250 gram thing was a dangerous precedent, scaring the public. Again, we should have done the science and figure out what the kinetic energy is. Again, if we did the idea of having a drone integration pilot program in a country this size with population densities and different things in the way it is ridiculous. I think you have a bunch of scare tactics. And to be honest with you, I think you have a situation where, and people may have remembered the Obama speech where he said, you didn't build that, other people have built that. I think you have this big scare going. So companies like Amazon, Google, Walmart, the rest of them get the taxpayer to invest in a UTM that they can use like roads in a trucking service. That's what I think. I mean, are we really concerned? This terrorism deal, as far as I'm concerned, I'm thinking that there's either a lack of will or, intelligence or something, because, man, without too much hard thinking, you can have a field day, and it's just not happening. So I'm not going to say that there aren't risks from drones, but I think there's bigger risks from other technologies.
Zoltan in the comments is saying you can take my life but not my airspace, and I've seen lots of people on Facebook are saying, but the government doesn't own the airspace. I'm seeing that coming up a lot of the world. Here in South Africa, here in Afrique du Sud, the government owns all the water, for instance. But how can that be, you cry? But it is. And so they have they can, because water is a national resource that has to be husbanded well, I suppose, is the answer. And I guess that's immediately going to be the answer of the FAA and anybody else, and the highest bidder has it. So I wonder, I don't know, anyone want to, again, I'm rambling, anyone want to pick up that?
In Cape Town or something, didn't it, recently, with the water being owned by the government? What happened there?
It worked very well indeed, very, very well indeed. And well, that's also planning. If you build your in a dry country, and then you build your big city on a peninsula, it gets very hard to get lots and lots of water there. They're going to have big rain today, actually. The drought is a little bit broken.
We're at an interesting stage. It used to be when I was younger, we joked about how taxes were terrible and things. Soon they'll be taxing the air. Well, goodness me,
here it is.
Exactly
here it
what
comes.
they're planning to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think that's going to happen everywhere. I mean, even here in the United States, we kind of have this deal that it's like a government of the people and by the people, and that the government does the will of the people. And California, that's not really the case. And it's the same thing with the water here. There's an issue. Technically that's a natural resource, but we pay the government to administer it for us. And, at the house here, I paid $60 a month for my water service, use it or not, or whatever, but I do see the NAS as a natural resource. The thing is the government does administer it for us, but I don't think that you can shut me off because I'm a hobbyist. I, again, don't really believe that the hobbyist is the problem. I think it's the guy, gal, go out, buy the drone at Best Buy. Yeah, I got my drone. It's cool. And if someone offers to pay me $45 to go do a real estate shop, then I'm going to go do that. And I'm a
But
big
are they,
sweater.
how much of a problem are they really? How big is the actual real problem? Is it a huge
I don't really
problem?
think it's that. I
It
don't
is a
really
big
think it's that
problem.
big of a problem.
Why
I
is it?
think
Why is it a big problem, Louis?
because I've seen that even this week, a lady on a nearby office knew that I worked at a drone company and came to me and told me, "Oh, I bought a new Mavic Air and I went to do some movies with my dog on the beach. Do you want to see them?" And I saw the beach and I told her, "You were in infraction of the drone law of flying with a camera. You had to get permit from the harbor master to fly there, and you were flying way above 120 meters on a airline corridor for the biggest airport in Portugal."
But who did she kill? Who did she kill?
But that's not the problem. If there wasn't a plane at that time, we would have an incident again, and the press would have a field day. And she got the drone at a very nice gentleman at the local Best Buy that sold her and told her that she could do wonderful pictures. And that's the big problem that we have. The lady knows nothing of drones, and she just bought the drone because the salesman at the shop told her that she could do great pictures. And even if she wanted to pay for the drone, she could do some publicity shootings with the drone because it had the quality, the picture quality and the image quality to do it. So she was very excited.
The dog was probably flying the drone too. You guy at the shop told her it's so easy the dog can fly it. You can run around.
Yeah,
let's cut to the chase. So the bottom line is, the sooner we get people out of the air, the safer we'll all be.
True. Yes. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. That is the bottom line. You're absolutely right.
But he's hitting the right point there. The deal, I go to the Best Buy every year. I go and I do the reality check, and I talk to the sales girl, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, drones. Do you have one? No, I can't afford one. Do you own a drone? Yeah, I got a whole mess of drones. Oh well, what do you do with them? Oh, I teach, blah blah blah. To people to get a license." She's like, "License? What do you need a license for? Well, if you're going to do it commercially, and you go into that, and there's rules. She knows nothing about it. So she's just there like she's going to sell you a camera or a, toaster or a microwave or whatever. It's just an electronic shop. They're selling you stuff. And this is one of the other points I made to Rich too. Now, it's aviation culture. I don't know how it is for you guys in the rest of the world, but you used to go to the local hobby shop and you go in there and you get first day you go in there and you look at the 90 size Spitfire and you're like, yeah, that's what I'm buying. I'm buying that puppy right there. And, the guy behind the counter says,
no, and the guy at the hobby shop, the first helicopter that I wanted to buy, the owner of the RC shop told me, "No, I won't sell you this before you learn to fly." So he teach me how to assemble it and how to fly it, and then I could buy the helicopter.
Right. Well, this is my point. Because then, the guy behind the counter would be like, "All right, do you know how to fly?" "No." "All right, slow down, Tiger. And here, let's go over here." And you'll start off with the gentle lady or the beaver or the secret squirrel or, something small. Now go out and learn how to fly that. And then you come back here and you're like, "God, I'm glad I didn't buy that missile because that would have lasted all of about 2.5 seconds." That's gone. I'm sure everybody's seen that guy.
How long have you been working in Hollywood special effects? That's very good. That was a 90-sized engine. I could hear that.
All we needed was some rendering and we'd be right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're just going to use the thing. Yeah. No, well, yes. Well, that's the edge. Is it DJI's responsibility to do the education and the mentoring and all that sort of thing?
It's technology. Come on, we have cell phones in our pockets that do a lot of things. It's technology. So we have either to embrace it or to have ways to make it safer. So it's part of the technology to make it safer. Whatever we have to do, we're all looking to do it the best responsible way. I don't believe the guys at. Okay, I won't go there. I was going to say I won't believe the guys at the government want to do bad. I'm not so sure of it.
Well, unfortunately, it's the highest bidder, isn't it? It's whichever lobby group's got the most cash, and I guess the worry is that we end up with a whole raft of rules and regulations that when they discover that delivering 500-gram packages to 1 million houses around America doesn't work, they'll walk away from the industry and not care, and we'll be left with the mess of rules and regulations that have been enforced to allow them in the first place.
Well, I can't speak to how the model works in the rest of the world, but here in the United States, if anyone looked at the Commercial Drone Alliance playbook for spring 2018, that is your textbook, how to make a career out of lobbying in Washington. And a lot of these people that work for the government here in the United States are looking to off-ramp to the private sector. And even, the FAA and the UASIO, the Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration Office, these guys are treated like rock stars. They go all around the world on junkets and have cocktails and whatever else. And they see that the people working at DJI are making $300,000 a year, and the guy at AEVSI is making $300,000 a year. And they're like, I'm over here, killing myself. I'm chained to this desk for 40 hours a week.
What if we've got more people subscribed to our email list than the members of AEVSI? Why aren't we making $300,000? What's going on?
Because I asked people about this, and I asked somebody else, another speaker, about what my problem was and how come I'm not a billionaire in drones. And he says, well, first thing is, Patrick, you're too picky. You need to be open to dealing with more people. And I said, well, I have this thing where I don't want to deal with flim-flam people, and I don't want to deal with people that are trying to make a quick buck off of people or rip them off. It's a deal where I got to look at myself in the mirror every day. The other thing is he says, well, you got to sell something that people want to buy, and people don't really like the truth.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you read my snake oil article or the shakedown article, but I said that intellectual honesty kick that I was on for a year or so, I made some real enemies, man. That put people in a very dark, scary place when you start talking about intellectual honesty.
Yes. Now, as Rich is saying, I thought DJI drones have a no fly mode. So how did that person fly? I'm not sure which person we're talking about. They do have a no fly mode, but they can be defeated.
No, you don't need to defeat it. You just have to submit a permit to fly there, and the DJI will unlock the fly on that area. Just have to present.
Well, now, were you talking about the woman and her dog? Because if she didn't know about that you couldn't fly there, why would she call and have them turn that off?
Yeah, then it's not on their map, but that's also a function of the data of the maps, and a lot of much like in real flying, you'll often see pilots ringing different weather offices to get different reports, and they go flying when they hear the weather report that fits the picture that they want to hear. And people do that with these flipping apps. They go around the apps. It's not on that map. It's on that. Oh, but it's not on that map. All right, I'll fly on this data then. And that's God! I hear my high horse is pulling up right here. I'm just about to get on my high horse. But that data, that basic map data, should be at your local government level. That should be your government, whichever country you're in. It should be that data should be coming from your aviation authority, nobody else, because it's bad aviation data is as good as no aviation data. Let's get off the horse. But
no, I totally agree with you. My students would do the same thing. I'd say, oh, there's the Know Before You Fly app, and then there's some other apps, and they'd come back, and a lot of the Chinese students, and I won't do the accent, but basically that Know Before You Fly, it sucks. Can't fly anywhere. So they go off to another app, and you know, where they can toggle stuff off until they can fly.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we can fly. Oh, look at that.
No, that's the problem. Our aviation regulator has a good phone app that tells you what you have to do to fly in certain areas, and people think it's very funny because it has a Portuguese map with lots of different colors, so they just think it's funny.
Yeah, no, it's an issue. It's an issue, and Bruce is going through that issue down there. Look at this. It's 11 minutes to 1 in the morning here. We've nearly gone to the magical 2 hours, so we should probably push for 2 hours. Did anyone see anything else this week that caught their eye that we should definitely talk about before we disappear off?
Another of those photographs that are real, and it's a shame they are real. One photograph of war material captured to somewhere in Syria or something, where you can see lots of machine guns and I would say 40 or 50 DJI Phantoms with their remotes that were captured to terrorists or rebel cells. Yeah.
Well, that's
and the picture just says war material captured to rebels in wherever it was.
Well, and that stuff
they probably have binoculars and knives and forks and spoons and all sorts of other things. So why are drones necessarily any different?
Yeah.
Because the binoculars, and I mean, I've heard the argument before, but I will say that these types of pictures and these being used for these types of activities are kind of what's making the government, let's say, law enforcement here apprehensive. And you know that video of the Phantom dropping the rifle grenade on the cupola of the tank and killing the commander set off warning bells. You know, that's an issue. Now, all the other stuff that you talked about, Bruce, and, you know, I've said the same thing. There's, you know, lawn darts and all the rest of this stuff is dangerous. But the thing is we're not really in a business where we're concerned about them regulating forks, spoons, and knives, you know, unless you live in London or whatever. But, you know, I mean, for the most part, those things, I'm not building a business around them. I'm not really too concerned about those right now. I'm concerned about the drones. And those pictures do give people pause, you know. And I don't know. DJI says they can't do anything about it. You know, if it were me, I'd do something about it. And I think they could do something about it.
And talking about knives, isn't in UK they want to outlaw knives?
Yeah, for several years you haven't been able to carry knives outwardly. It's a weapon. That's been like the case for the whole of the UK for several years. It's not a new thing. I don't know. I've not kept up to speed with the latest version of that. But yeah, that's a whole other. It's a whole other kettle of ball games. I think I don't know if you've caught the news, Patrick, that the Australian Army is training on Chinese drone makes, not to use them in the purpose of their armying, but to learn how the enemy might use them against them, and how they might be modified against them.
Well, and I do think it's interesting. And the other thing is some of the DJI representatives have told me, like, oh, you know, your stories are bogus because they're still ordering these drones from us, which is true. They are. And they are using them, as you said, to do training for counter drone or how they may be used. You know, the other thing I think we were emailing back and forth, the Royal Navy says they don't want any Chinese drones on their boats. It's definitely an issue. Again, you know, this is one other thing with the DJI. Supposedly they hired a third-party independent firm to audit what data they were collecting. Everybody's still waiting for that. I have a feeling that they're probably may not be happy with the data that's coming back. But another thing I wanted to talk about too is some of the other data. you know, the data for safety for flying over people and other things like that, mean time between failures, that data is available to them. And I wish that they would share that in lieu of them paying for science.
I don't know if they'll make it readily available.
Oh, I doubt they will, but it would be nice if we had some like hard numbers. We could go to the regulator and say, well, we can fly the Mavic Air over people because it's safe, or the Mavic Pro because it has a mean time between failure average of 1 in 1,000 hours, which we all know is a pipe dream, but you know, whatever. In lieu of the science.
I think that it might be forced upon them. You know, you have to have accountability in aircraft spares and things like that. You have to know exactly where that nut and bolt have come from all the way through its production. I can't remember what that's called now. Someone might remind me in the comments. But yeah, I mean, regulators might say we want to see that data. there's no getting away with it, or you can't sell them here.
Well, that's one other news item I want to touch on too, is the white paper from the guys at Langley about doing studies on safe drones for flying over people and beyond visual line of sight. Those are the same guys who came up with a program during the ARC to test kinetic energy and impacts on people and also small aircraft. That plan was kind of thrown in the garbage. So if you know of anyone who wants to sponsor some scientific research, they're looking for a little bit of, they could do a little private-public partnership, which I think would be good. I've already contacted one of the lobbying firms and asked them if they were willing to put up some money to do that, and they said they'd call me back, so that'll be interesting if that happens. That's another thing with this industry is I really don't think, I can't believe we're this far along and we don't have any scientific data to support where we're coming from. Would the rest of you agree or disagree?
Depends on what you consider scientific data. I can give you numbers, but they're not scientific. And you know how
third-party, peer-reviewed, objective data. That's what I'm looking for. Science.
Yeah, this whole thing hasn't been driven by science or objectivity. It's been driven by hysteria in the media. Here in New Zealand, they're telling us we're going to have massive reforms to the drone regulations because these dangerous drones have jeopardized these hundreds of lives and airliners. You know, I read a report that somewhere, I think it was Spain, apparently a drone hit an airliner, they say, and there was no damage. And there's been no evidenced instances of this. And if you look at the George Mason University report, that they estimate, and this is science, that there'll be 1 injury or death caused by a drone collision with a commercial aircraft every 400 years. Now, this is the science. These people, these are scholars, they've worked this out, but these studies are just ignored in favor of, my daughter saw a drone, it was spying on her, these things must be banned. This is what the media is driving this whole thing. And as long as we are slaves of the media, then politicians respond to public pressure. The public are influenced by the media. It's out of control. We don't have any control over what's going on here. It's just it's basically, you know, hysteria, public ignorance, and you can't. I've been trying to fight that. It's very hard to fight it. You can't fight it with logic or fact because people just dismiss your facts and ignore your logic because I heard from someone else or we've been told by the media. It's like we're really behind the 8 ball here.
Just follow piping the stories to the media. Just follow that and follow the money. You'll know where.
Not only that, even as an industry, like I went to AUVSI, I don't know, in 2011, 2012, maybe 2013. I don't know. I think it was earlier than that. And I said, what you need to do is you need to do some science and you need to hire a PR firm that sells like orange juice or something to moms. You need to have a PR firm that can build a message that this technology can do more than be military. It can save lives. It can help feed a hungry world. It can, you know, help us be better stewards of our environment, all the rest of the stuff. They laughed. You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. But I think that these were missed opportunities, and especially now in the advocacy. Instead of sitting around with 250 people in an advisory committee and, you know, speculating and, you know, oh, well, you know, I mean, nobody cares how you feel. I'm not, you know, going to, let's say, risk my whole career on somebody's feelings. I want to see some science. I want to see some science that says, hey, this is what happens when a, you know, 1 kilogram drone glances off somebody's skull, like whatever. Okay, this is what's, probability of injury, blah, blah, blah. Even the Assure data, I've talked to other scientists who said they never really wrote a scientific paper of their findings that would be something that is repeatable, something that we can actually go to and peer review. And I was like, really? Well, I didn't know that, but you would think all the money that the FAA spent, we would have got something like that. So I don't really believe, this is another industry too. Remember a few years ago when the bag out at Heathrow, they saw the garbage bag and they said it was a drone. So just for fun, for the FAA, I went over there to the bag manufacturer's website. And they actually had a message that was coherent, concise. They had some scientific data that talked about their bags and strengths and whatever else. I go, we don't even as an industry, we don't have that. We don't have any unified message or messaging. We got nothing, and there's no science to back up anything we're talking about here. And again, going through all this stuff from the ARC, the notes, it's just hard to believe that here we are 10 years later with nothing to defend ourselves with, no data. I don't know. It's disappointing.
Yes. And on that note, and on that bombshell, yeah, it's
we have it all here: high horses, bombshells.
Louis went straight away. That's unusual. He must have something to do. Dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, thank you very much for watching. Oh, Louis, come back again. Louis, come back and say goodbye. Thank you very much. Patrick, I think you are likely to be putting the videos up on this channel sometime after the event for those overseas that can't make it. And otherwise, if you are in the San Francisco area, it is, what is it, Thursday and Friday?
Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday, Thursday. It's close. It's very, very close. Very close.
And we're doing a 107 class with Scott Strimple on Friday. It's going to be great. Don't miss it.
Okay, so that's happening in San Francisco and Treasure Island and at that club that you mentioned earlier, which I should have written down, and I didn't. So I'm sorry about that. So get along there if you can. Louis, thanks very much for your input as ever. And Bruce, of course, thank you as well for your input. What might we be seeing from your video vault in this coming week, Mr. Simpson?
No idea. I've got lots of reviews and things to do. But unfortunately, as we know, my ability to go and fly things in the park has now disappeared. So puts a cramp on things. But yeah, there's lots of stuff sitting here on my machine, my new edit machine, waiting to be turned into stuff to upload. So I'll probably be spending a lot of time behind the keyboard and hopefully get a whole lot of videos out before the end of the week.
Fantastic. And Louis, will you get that helicopter flying, Louis?
Yeah, perhaps this week. Let's see how it behaves, the big drone. But I'm also reaching out a hand to Bruce that perhaps we can teach Ardupilot to fly like Bruce, so he doesn't feel restrained to test his drones, and he can fly his drones watching them from the safety of his computer.
Absolutely. Keyboard time. It's blowing a gale. Oh, it's blowing a gale, says Chris there. So it's not. It's whoever Gale is. Anyway, moving on very swiftly. Thanks very much, gentlemen. Thanks very much, dear viewer. Look forward to seeing you again 2100 GMT next Tuesday. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.